promotions. We have a new person, Karen is here today. I'll let Karen introduce herself. And Sheriff, this is your first week, isn't it, Karen?
It is.
Hey, good. Well, you get a chance to share the finance committee. That's us. They call it audit, facilities and finance. Sorry. That's what we'll call it. So, Karen.
And I am Karen Robinson. I'm the new finance assistant working with Dan and Diane. And I've been here now for about 5 months.
Good.
Mhm.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all. I've seen your names now, but it's really nice.
Like it.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Well, you must have changed all these things now.
No, we're not running.
You're a big couple of them.
Yeah.
You're smiling a lot about that.
Yeah, so that's great, that's wonderful. Yeah, we have some changes upon the order of business singing. But Karen, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
I know Dan smiled and I see he's double smiling today. So which is good news, everybody. So that's it. I think for new, and we're pleased, I was glad to have the chair in Davis, our chair. Commission. So thank you all. We have no one participating in the vote, so therefore we're not policy per se. So we'll move on to item 2, administrative items, which is approval of minutes. And I hate to thrust upon you, if you want to take some time to read them a little bit later, or we can come back to the minutes. What's your pleasure?
2 sets.
2 sets of minutes. Yeah, those are, what is it? What days are we approving? Is it January 23rd?
24th and
Oh.
July 25th.
And July 20th, that's correct. So those 2 months. We may take a moment to scan them. Speed read, if you will. And of course, then we discussed other financial future meeting, which is today, August 22nd. Next meeting, October 31st, and at 2:20.
January and July, because we had.
We have,
When we met in July, we approved the April minutes, but I think you actually reminded us that we hadn't brought the January minutes for approval.
Yeah.
So they were in this time. Is that, am I remembering?
Yeah.
so with that thought in mind, when you're ready, I'll entertain a motion, then, or we.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and we have a second.
Mr.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Are you doing batch minutes?
Yeah, we can batch them both.
I'll have, if you could separate, because I wasn't here for January, I wasn't here for July.
We can do it. Okay.
I apologize, sir.
That's that problem. Let's rescind that and let's go for approve January 24th first, shall we? Take a motion to approve January 24th first, 2023. You'll do that. Thank you. And it's been such an additional discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, sign by. Ayes have it. That's so approved. January 24th minutes. Next is July 25th, 2023 minutes for audit, finance and facilities. We may have a motion, please.
So moved.
It's been moved and
Second.
probably second. Any additional discussion?
Yeah.
Hearing none, all those in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. Next item is item, I think 2, which is administrative. We did administrative. Let's move over to item 3, financial reports. Fiscal 2023 year-end closing and audit update. Item A, and then we'll roll to the financial statements as you desire. Mr. Barnett, Dan, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
fiscal 23 year-end closing and audit. The audit has begun remotely at this point with some preliminary control work and field work. We will very shortly submit the trial balance and all those supporting schedules, probably within the next week, for certain before the end of this month. As we are finishing year-end close. And it's just the natural pace, especially for a government type entity like ours. Just information comes in that is relevant to the year end, but it comes in after the year end, so July, August. And so we have done a very good scrub of our revenue and accounts receivable.
Okay.
Thanks to Ms. Karen. So when you said that I was smiling, I'm very much smiling. You know, Karen's done a wonderful job of coming
Great.
in and.
Yeah, come on in, sir. See here and there, that's what your choice. You go sit over here. You choose that, one, you choose sit.
I see this view all the time on the show.
I just had to see she's there. Yeah. Well, that.
So the $34,000
Okay.
operating income that we're looking at a month ago,
Okay,
it is holding firm,
okay, the numbers that we looked at last round,
right?
okay.
And so, you know, just one more sweep of liabilities and expenses to make sure that we have everything. There's oftentimes bills that come in, you know, later than what you would expect that refer to the older period. We just need to be sure that we're capturing those in the correct period.
Okay,
So the 34,000 that we reported last month is holding.
it's holding
We're
firm.
holding firm. And that's what I was saying, you know, parents, their new accounting specialist assistant. It's done a nice job of really getting into the detail of our account receivable and some of those types of things. And it's been a great benefit to us in those ways. So, you know, Dan and I don't have to ramble on those things and yes, command those. So that's been a definite benefit to us. The fiscal 23, the financial update you have on page 7, it's actually the balance sheet
Okay,
that I added, the July 31st balance sheet. You know, we do close every single month. You know, we report on the quarter, but we do close every single month. So to refer to that statement, that first column on the left, July 31st, 2023, unaudited, the cash balance has been replenished. And that is thanks to our municipalities paying their annual dues in a very timely way. And so we're very appreciative of that. I think, as we said here, there's only one that is not. Okay. But, you know, it's, as you might expect, given our, you know, annual calendar, when we come to the end of June, you know, cash is lower than, you know, is at its lowest point of the year because those annual dues are how we support operations and that cash gets spent.
and then cash comes in July
And the cash comes
from
from
the
July,
municipalities.
right?
What are the terms on it, like net 30 or net 10, 20?
And
All the terms,
technically, it's upon receipt,
upon receipt, good,
right?
they can pay it as fast as they can.
And, you
There you
know,
go. Sorry to indulge you there, but
and, you know, we had, improved our strategy in getting the invoice and to the right hands of the people who will actually benefit from it. So we're doing a better job of that, but I just wanted to say thank you for the entities you have represented. That it's important to get those payments in. You know, that's how, you know, that is our cash flow, that is our liquidity. So it's a very important thing to do. So we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Few other items to know, accounts receivable is increasing from the June 30 number. And a lot of that is as we're, you know, another month of actual accruals of July.
Okay,
Not yet received AR that was billed following June 30th.
okay.
But we're about to receive a lot of payments on that accounts receivable, probably in the next 2 weeks, definitely within the next month. So we'll see those numbers start to liquefy, become more liquid with cash. And
What's the difference between accrued revenue and accounts receivable?
the way that they're presented here, accounts receivable billed are actually those accounts that have been billed to our funding organization, to VDOT, to VDOM, Department of Emergency Management. So the bill has actually been submitted for payment. Accrued revenue is something that we've earned.
But yet it's not billed.
but not yet billed to the entity that it is.
Okay.
So that's the difference there.
Okay.
You know, those two numbers kind of move a little bit opposite of each other on the quarter because many of our grants are due
Yeah,
on the quarter.
yeah.
So
Accrued revenue's been earned but not yet received. Is that right?
not yet billed.
Not yet billed, okay.
So when you see the revenue in the financial statements,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as we accrue time or incur time and other stuff on projects,
Mm-hmm.
we recognize that revenue in that month. And that becomes an accrued revenue. And then according to the terms of the agreement, you know, for VDOT, for our, you know, the TPO funding, we submit that bill once a quarter. So after each quarter, so in this case, July, we would take those 3 months, actually bill it. So it moves from accrued revenue into accounts receivable billed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that we can see just how close are we to actually collecting on that revenue that was accrued.
Do we have any problems on our accounts receivable in terms of prompt payments or aging of the accounts?
I think thank you for that question. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's part of our analysis.
Okay.
And we've been doing a more specific deep dive on that. That's part of the work that Karen and I were doing. And Diane, you know, Karen and I spent several time, a couple times these last 2 weeks, just going through all that detail. You know, we do have some older receivables that we made sure that we cleaned up in our schedule
Okay.
and have contacted the payers.
Okay.
We have commitments from those payers, you know, to start, you know, paying. You know, there was one issue with one of our peers where there was some confusion on just the contract number that we billed under.
Okay.
And so we resolved that. And so there's $123,000 coming in probably
Okay.
by the end of the month.
I
There's-
don't think Dan wants to say, but Department of Emergency Management is pretty notorious for not paying on time, and it's a statewide
Yeah,
issue.
that's the next one I was gonna say, well, I mean, there's one that's often a 90
Okay.
day payer.
Okay.
Well, I know we've had years in the past, we've had things that were owed that we knew were never going to be paid. And we don't have any of that. Do we have any of that anymore? I know we
No.
have some.
We should.
No.
We shouldn't have.
That was part of the review.
Yeah.
And anything
We
that
should.
wasn't gonna be paid,
All of us remember.
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
History.
Yeah.
we were
Well,
down to
some
$49.
contracts with previous personnel and
Okay.
some things of that type
Yeah.
that were
Okay.
receivables that.
Right, and we handle that through charge offs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
should
what
be
I'm
clear-
saying.
clear.
That's
Yeah,
all been
yeah.
charged. We don't have anything.
Yeah,
that's in
and
that
the
category.
auditors look at that very closely and make sure that we don't keep them on our books because they're not legitimate receivables.
Why did they
Never
not
going.
want to pay it? What reason did they give them not paying?
for the 2 items I just mentioned.
Yeah.
One was a meals expense that wasn't eligible. That was like
They said,
$120.
well,
But when I say $120, what we have outstanding from VDOT is $224,000, but $131,000 is marked in the system as approved for payment. And so we should be receiving those.
But $120 is the excuse for non-payment.
No, but the reason I brought it up is to answer your question about, do we have bad receivables? No, we do not.
Okay.
You know, especially with the extra help. You know, we're able to take a good look at that, and that's part of our process every month now, is to just go through detail.
One of our major payers is VDOT. Big
VDOT.
time money comes to VDOT.
VDOT.
Yeah, VDOT. So that's one to look at and keep a close eye on to make sure that's going well as we get there. Be almost proactive, if you will.
Yeah,
in
for
terms of
example,
collection. Yeah,
you know, for one of our revenue sources through VDOT,
yeah,
RSVP, we have 232,000 that's due,
right.
and 118,000 has been confirmed for payment,
Okay,
you know, essentially in the next 2 weeks.
okay. Okay.
So there were some things that we had to go through to resubmit and correct and that type of thing. But we should be in good shape with what we have on the books right now.
Okay.
So there wasn't really any revenue adjustments due to accounts receivable that would affect you.
Okay. Do we know anybody, Martha, at the with emergency management, you know, anyone at that organization that we can like
Yeah,
call if we need
I
to?
think we've built a pretty good working relationship with the representatives there. I think what happens is that seasonally, as you all know, VDM deals with federal and state aid to communities, and they've been short-staffed for 10 years. And so it really comes down to sometimes they literally will put on hold all of their non-emergency payments to be able to shift the workload to the federal aid that has to be administered. So, you know, anytime there's extreme weather, you know, snow reimbursements, I mean, all those kinds of things, all that gets prioritized.
Mhm.
And so we try to pay attention, and they typically do a good job of letting us know that things are on delay.
Mhm.
But every once in a while, their system, I think. Do you think things have gotten better since they moved to the new system?
To the EM grant
Yeah.
system. Yes.
That sounds like
Um,
that's two-letter answer.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, it has been better, but I think they just, they pay slowly.
Yeah, they have better line of sight to see when, I think in their old system, they literally would have to manually run a report to see if a reimbursement got snagged somewhere.
Mhm.
And it could just be sitting there, and until we contacted it, now at least I think they can see it, but yeah, it's
And-
still.
We can see it.
That's
Okay, good,
So that's,
good, well.
that helps.
Good.
We know where it is in the process now.
And we know what the status is.
Mhm.
If it goes to quote step 3, we know it's and that's where, you
Okay,
know, most of their dollars are.
Yeah.
now.
For smaller planning districts, there's a regular conversation with our state association about
Mhm.
these challenges, and because virtually all of our revenue streams are paid on reimbursement. Smaller planning district commissions don't have the reserves to cash flow, you know, a quarter of operations, and so there's a regular discussion with state agencies about prompt payment and that kind of thing. So we are relative to our friends around the state in really good shape.
Yeah.
It's a hardship for some of the other planning district commissions.
Yeah, that word fund balance and cash, operating cash, that's why it becomes so critical in case we have a snafu such as emergency management. You're right. That's why that's a,
Sometimes I found when you have
right.
slow repairs,
Yeah,
you don't actively manage it as much.
Yeah.
And then that just compounds the
they get
issue.
slower, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
So
happens.
we're avoiding that phenomenon by being
Okay.
very proactive and
Okay.
analyzing our AR.
Yeah, keep on speed down.
Yeah.
Okay,
And just, you know, anything that
okay,
gets out of expectation,
okay, good.
ask the question, you know,
Yeah.
make sure that we're just being proactive, all of that.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
you know, when you do some analysis of our balance sheet and stuff, there's, you know, a very strong premium on making sure that we collect those receivables. And like I said, the process is we accrue it monthly, so your income statement looks good,
Mhm.
but your cash flow, and we pay people semi-monthly,
Yeah, we have to pay cash.
and we have to pay our rent every month. And
That's right.
so we're actually fronting all of
Okay.
our expenses
Mhm.
before we get reimbursed.
Okay,
So it's a significant piece of how to operate this entity well.
and that's why localities are critical when they pay up, and we get that other one that's out there to get them informed.
Yeah,
So we have that cash flow.
Yes.
That's-
It helps our
that's-
cash flow. It
Yeah,
helps with
right.
our contract commitments,
Right.
you know, when we have matching requirements.
Mhm.
We have that money in the bank, it's very important to us.
I agree. Any other questions? Anything else on the balance sheet you want to note or is noteworthy that we should be aware of, concerned about?
Not
Nothing, not at this point, okay.
Is the fund balance? Okay.
That's probably something that we'll discuss over the next 2 meetings, actually, as we discuss what is an appropriate
Yeah.
fund balance, you know, how much should we have there?
Mhm.
And I did what I thought was a fun and interesting analysis. We're actually, you know, took our last balance sheets and analyzed just what is the composition, is it cash or is it receivable?
Receivables, yeah,
As of June 30, 2023, it's actually much more receivables.
okay,
At the end of the previous fiscal year, there was a lot more cash that comprised it, you know, the way I teed up the analysis.
okay.
But it's a good question to keep our eyes on, and that's just one of those things. Sent Martha an email last week.
Okay.
If somebody, several people or several organizations are paying, you know.
So,
You sent Martha an email, could you get?
yeah, where I literally, I attached it, I said, trust me,
Right,
this is interest.
okay,
For someone like me, it's an interesting thing to do to break down.
Okay.
And sheet like
Yeah.
that.
All right.
See,
all right,
where that liquidity is coming from. where
okay,
that's coming from.
good, okay, okay, that's important to know. Yeah, any other questions? And what we have here is a treasurer's report, thank you for that at the bottom, which shows cash in the bank, which actual money you can actually tangibly go there and get. I hope if you had to have the demand deposits or what have you, and then we got investments there on the second line item, which is invested in the LGIP, which is noted, which is a good thing to have here. The money to cash flow and the yields we have on these some good yields at 4.97% as of in April.
Right.
And 5% while in June.
Yeah, July.
Again,
Yeah.
as a non,
Yes, sir.
accountant,
Mhm.
you know, I know we talked about we need $1 million, but fund balance.
On balance, yeah.
But if we had something come up that needed 500,000, where are we getting the other two? If we've only got 309 in cash.
So we don't have a line of credit. I
Well,
believe.
that's what I was asking.
That would be.
That's what I was asking.
Credit.
Yeah, it says we have that
Yeah.
fund
I
balance.
don't-
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
not hearing an answer
Yeah, yeah.
to the
Okay.
question.
The fund balance.
Well,
then
I
is
mean,
not
my
totally
answer to that is,
Is what?
we would have to make something happen at this point. Martha and I have had some discussions as to what we might want to do.
Okay,
And, the options may include, getting authorization to have a standing line of credit.
yeah, right.
But the most important thing for us to do is what we already discussed, is make sure that we're turning those receivables into cash in
Mhm.
the most efficient manner
Okay,
possible.
okay,
So that's those balances, things, but the number of times that we've had a $500,000 issue,
Mhm.
I don't know that I've experienced one.
okay,
Our
I'm
payroll,
saying that, but
I understand.
there's a big difference in, if you need it.
you gotta have it. Let's go.
It needs to have reasonable liquidity.
What are
to-
our options?
Yeah,
What are our options? As you point out, I think that's a reasonable question to ask. And what could we do? And we don't have a line of credit? Is it something we need to contemplate? What's the cost thereof? I know some organizations do and some don't.
well, we
Have
had
it.
a line of credit way long time ago.
You did? That's
Yeah,
private name,
I'm
private
trying
name.
to remember that
Mhm.
we got out of it. I mean,
Did we?
chose not to
Because
do
it's
it.
costly.
I think it was, I had forgotten exactly the reason, but there was, it was- we were leaning on it too much. I know it was
We
one-
used it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's different.
Too much.
Okay.
That may have been before we even had the fund balance really. I was trying to think, it's been
Yeah.
20 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for sharing that insight.
And as we
Apologies,
go through the
folks.
fund balance
Okay, right.
Yeah.
process, creating that policy,
Mhm.
reviewing policy,
Mhm.
those are some of the issues that will be addressed. The issues,
Okay,
Martha has contacted some of her colleagues as far as
Okay.
what they may have as policies. I've done. some
yeah, we need to
research.
know that. We need to know what if, could we borrow from it? Go ahead, I'm sorry. Finish.
And, the question, how much do you really need to have
Yeah,
in your fund balance?
Fund balance,
For your expenses.
yeah,
And there are a lot of risk assessments they have to look at. And then
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once you do that, you determine what type of back coverage is and,
yeah.
the line of credit,
Mhm.
how much do you actually plan for that?
Mhm.
Rare, but still relevant risk issue.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the most important thing is to operate efficiently,
I couldn't agree more.
which is stay within your budget. We did a couple things in this last budget where our capital items
Mhm.
are actually being funded through operations going
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm.
Fiscal 23 budget, we had, we moved into this space as a capital project was paid from fund balance, and that took some of our liquidity because we didn't take any debt to do this move,
Mhm.
which speaks to the financial soundness that we were able to do it that way.
Right.
So now we're,
I think we had done.
looking at it and with the
Yeah.
analysis, we'll see what do we really need to have there. And then as we keep our the analysis of the balance sheet. Swaps and entities like this only look at that profit and loss to see how we're making money or are we losing money. Don't really take a good look at that balance sheet to see where is that money, you know, Ben's question,
Cash.
is that fund balance in cash or what is it?
Yeah, we need to ascertain that.
I think that's the next item on the agenda.
It is on the D, we're gonna talk about it, you're right. And one thing I'll say, yeah, I like to have a little bit more cash personally. I like to have lots of cash. I'm more conservative. I like to have that and know, and also, I don't know if it's feasible, but we again, thank our jurisdictions for their contributions to help us with the cash that we need initially. You said earlier so well. And is it possible, for example, that a jurisdiction could loan us money? Suppose we need 500,000. Could we go to a jurisdiction and say, hey, give me 500,000 for 6 months at a given rate or whatever? I'm not saying we should do that. I'm not saying that's an option. I'm saying we need to have all options on the table that we can discuss, evaluate the cost thereof and what are the issues. Yeah,
I remember that has come up.
it has come up.
And the
Okay.
jurisdictions, Henrico had to come up with, I know it was like 57 or 60, for some reason 57,000
57,000.
is sticking in my head, but so did several of the other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And it had to do with the money, it had to do, again, way back.
Okay.
When
know
the guy that took off,
Mhm.
used the money.
I remember that.
Bought cars and.
Yeah.
And it turned out there wasn't enough money to
To do.
cover things.
Right. I got you.
But
That's the last resort.
That's the last resort. It's gotta be,
That's
it's gotta be the last.
That's
That was the
extension
last.
guarantee.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's the last resort. I agree fully, but we need to explore. I know, I can tell you about Chesterfield, we have about 8% of our budget in cash reserves. I think it's $60 million. And we, last time I checked, we had earned almost $2.25 million on our money. We had
Right
a
now
lot
it's
of money this
paying
year, year to date.
short-term.
Short term, yeah, and on our cash. So we've not had to use our cash reserves at all.
Yeah.
Over the years I've been there, we have more than enough cash available. So we're in great shape there, but every month, the one thing I look at is the cash treasury report. And so what the cash is, how much we're earning on it,
Mhm.
and was pretty healthy. Feel free to go there and look at it if you want. It's at Chesterfield.gov treasurer. You can see her monthly report showing the cash, where it is and how much is in there.
Okay, Marcy, you heard that, you know where it all is.
Chesterfield.gov.
You know where it-
Rebecca, she'll be glad to work with you. She'll be glad to work with you. Yeah, so great. But anyway, that's something I think we need to definitely address. Are we on item D? Did you mention that?
Yeah, I did.
So we all, item,
I tried
wait,
to
but C,
flip it
did we
through
do
the-
C? Did we do C? We didn't do C.
If one was see.
Budget
Point
update.
four, budget update.
2024 budget.
Yeah, we didn't cover that. Let's cover that.
Yeah, the update is that
Mhm.
the budget that we passed in April,
Okay,
there are significant changes to it
okay,
that we're
Yeah.
analyzing and carrying through.
okay.
I don't know if you wanna. Here,
It's ours. It's okay.
we received the award and confirmation that one of our grant applications was accepted and awarded $1 million grant from the EPA for climate pollution reduction
Wonderful,
over a 4-year period.
wonderful.
We have to match it.
No,
Okay.
it's actually 100%. And, you know, the good news for me is that it's more than what we expected. That which should be available in the first year was more than what we had budgeted.
Okay.
And so that'll offset some of the other shifts that we have.
Mhm.
We do have other grant applications in the process,
Mhm.
which are supplemental to our budget. Whether they're replacement funding or supplemental funding is part of what we're analyzing.
Mhm.
And, you know, the difference there is, are we taking, you know, work that could have been built over here, and building it over here, or are we adding it? Are we being able to backfill some of the work?
It's such a big grant. Do you need to hire somebody?
It's gonna be a combination of contracted
Mhm.
expertise and that's exactly what Dan's talking about, to analyze how do we make sure that we're maximizing the revenue, not scaling staff too large, but getting the work done in a timely manner.
What are the tasks that we are performing during?
There's
It's hard to perform for that.
5 deliverables over the course of the 4 years. The first is to develop, well, I'll say 3. The first is to get through a pretty arduous process with DEQ DEQ and EPA on a data verification. And I will be honest with you, I can't begin to understand exactly what the pieces of that are. But it's a data usage agreement. And then the primary tasks in the planning grant are to create a preliminary plan with the 18 jurisdictions in the metro MSA area, and then to create a final plan. And the purpose of the plan is to be able to establish a set of needs and priorities that then the local governments can ask for implementation dollars from EPA. So it's essentially kind of a screen-in so that localities can then go for actual money to do projects.
So this $1 million is a multi-year. plan.
It's
It's not-
4 years.
not all.
4 years.
So is that, what, 250 each year or a million each year?
No,
It's
it's-
scaled differently.
$1 million over the 4 years. So it's scaled according to the work plan that the staff put together. I think we got the award a little bit earlier than we expected.
So it's a federal grant.
Federal grant.
So what happens if there's a change in the federal government? I mean, is it could go away?
Contract's been awarded,
So
it's already appropriated money.
It's already appropriate.
Yeah, it's not a pledge of commitment. It's a grant award under the infrastructure bill.
Okay.
And sign an executed agreement between us and them.
We've done all of that.
Yeah.
So one were cash flow to us.
Reimbursement was effective back in
Reimbursement.
August 1.
Okay. August 1.
Reimbursement. Okay.
Okay.
But you are contracting out some of it. You're not gonna have to hire somebody here.
I think it's gonna be a mix, but we did a call yesterday with DEQ and the other two, Hampton Roads Planning District Commission received the same grant as well as the WashCog. And so there's been some discussion about using cooperative procurement to hire the consultants needed to do the work. We want to try to coordinate as much as possible with the state and our partners.
Okay. And so we'll make sure we have expertise to make sure we fulfill the essence of what the grant requires.
Yeah, I think Nicole Keller on our staff has done a really excellent job of putting
Okay.
together the proposal and identifying the work. She's supported by Sarah Stewart, her supervisor, and Eli Fatima, who's one of our newer staff members. But we've got some new staff members that were approved in the budget coming on that will be also involved in the project. So it's going to be many hands on deck for this one.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions on that grant?
What is the grant?
Please.
And it says data verification to establish a plan.
Yeah, that first part, again, that's the part that I'm not as confident in, but we have to get EPA to approve the assumptions that we're using for the data. So it's really around calculation of greenhouse gas loading and other types of air quality and pollutant measures. And I'm just, that's not an area that I'm terribly knowledgeable on. So that QAPP is the first step, and then we move into the preliminary plan development, which will open the door to some of the funding opportunities, and then final plan is due at the end of the 4-year period of performance.
And other planning districts will receive this as well, such as Hampton Roads.
I think it was the 50 largest MSAs in the
50,
country were
okay.
invited to apply. And so Hampton Roads, we in Washington, DC are those in Virginia. The rest of the state will be covered by the DEQ-led effort.
Okay,
So part of the discussion and calculation with our jurisdictions in the planning district footprint, we're going after this opportunity allows us to have a more customized plan for our region, which, as you all know, statewide plans don't always take into consideration the preferences and priorities of local communities. So we wanted to be able to have this driven a bit more by our jurisdiction. So to do that, though, that meant that it was the MSA, which means it's 18 localities that are a part of the planning process. So we in Crater we're lead kind of prime and they're second in leading the balance of the geography.
okay. And we have tie-in with the jurisdictions,
Yeah, I want to say we got letters of support from all of our jurisdictions.
We did, okay.
And I think we also got letters of support from Middle Peninsula. They have 2 jurisdictions in the footprint. Letters of support from Crater, and we're also still, as of yesterday, trying to navigate what our opportunity is to partner with the local tribal organizations in our footprint. Because there was a different way that EPA decided to treat them in this process. And so we're trying to make sure everybody's coordinating and on the same page with next.
That's within the MSA footprint, not our Our footprint, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
And there's a lot more tribes.
yeah, that's what I was
does.
thinking that, that's good, that's inclusive. That's a good thing. Yeah, inclusive nature, of it. But that's good. Yeah, I'm thinking about what we can get in terms of expertise in the region, whenever you have something like this that is somewhat nebulous. Where we can have someone in the region who's an expert, maybe in environmental, like, for example, our environmental
Yeah.
engineer.
We definitely want to put together like a stakeholder steering committee.
Okay.
It'll be
good.
invited representatives from each of the jurisdictions.
Okay.
Good. And so Dr. Casey gave us a designated point of contact in the application development, as did all of the
Good.
CAOs in the region. They gave us a point of contact to work with
Mhm.
to develop the proposal and to identify those folks. So I know we're connected in with all of your jurisdictions on
Mhm.
who those people are.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other concerns relative to that, Brian?
I was just thinking about the money.
Yeah, yeah.
It really has been in the past.
It is good news.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's a good adjustment to the budget.
Yes, but if you get it and then you have to hire people and then
Yeah.
if something happens, that you don't have to fire them.
Yeah,
Like, they're contracted.
Okay.
That's right.
all right. Any other concerns regarding 2024 budget update? Any other concerns?
I think the plan is that after we close the first quarter,
Okay,
we expect to have some of these other awards that Dan alluded to that are pending right now. We'll know about those. And so the idea is we'll close the quarter
Mhm.
and come back to the finance committee with a refresh of the fiscal year 2024 outlook so that we've got, those awards incorporated into the budget
Mhm.
and do a new cast of time and staff.
The
Mhm.
personnel
Mhm.
changes.
Okay, and the revisions of the budget or revisions,
All of that.
early on, since it's significant, I think it's good for the executive committee to be informed about that, for sure. And the commission at large, so that's very good.
And I guess I will say maybe a little bit as a point of departure from previous years,
Mhm.
we are doing a deep analysis every quarter when we close the financials. And the idea is to come back to this committee at each quarter. It used to be that we did twice a year budget review and there would be an amendment in December. You might remember that.
Yeah.
And then we've had discussions about, what does that mean? And I think as we talked and kind of the dynamic nature of particularly this year as grant opportunities come out, we feel like quarterly is a good time to come back to you and say, okay, this is where we are. This is what we know. This is what's pending.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I would expect that there are going to be detailed reports and recommendations each quarter when this committee meets.
Okay, that's good. That's in order. To make sure we're aware and no surprises, if they're good or bad, just let me know
That's right.
as soon as possible. This
That's
is a
right.
good surprise, but it still needs to be shared.
I think we
And then
feel like
we'll
too,
communicate.
a quarterly evaluation allows us to, if there are things that we didn't expect that are not as exciting, we are flagging them with enough time to be able to correct course.
Right, good. That's good to hear. Any other concerns relative to that, Dan, you have, or
Yeah.
Karen, you okay, Karen? Yeah, okay, good.
And just to build on that, kind of the idea is looking for planning horizon, set it out once a year
Yeah,
in the spring.
Yeah.
The budget process is that it's a
Mhm.
much more of a formalized process that's quarterly, monthly.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
it's part of
good.
our regular
Yeah.
reporting cycle.
Yeah, I think that's great.
To include the planning element of it looking forward.
Looking forward as well as what we have already done, not historical, but pro forma in nature. I think that's good.
So as far
Yes,
as the
ma'am.
fund balance, did we establish?
No, we haven't gotten there
Okay.
yet. We're headed there.
Okay.
That's a great another segue. I want to finish up with item C. I know when I was in corporate, we did 3 revisions to the budget. As soon as we did budget, we start with Vision 1, Vision 2, Vision 3. We were right on and we closed the books, man, we're right on top of it. So we got to keep that very attentive to
Okay.
because the impact of operations. But anyway, let's move on to item D. Segue right to that path to fund balance policy review, which takes on new meaning as of today even. You think about cash flow, you think about eventualities and options that we can propose to the executive committee should it be needed. So that they can act accordingly. And direct us to act accordingly, I guess, as it relates to the cash flow and the money. I think this takes on a new balance. And just segue to that, we had discussed what our old fund balance was. I think it was $1 million. We felt that when we moved here, it was important to take a serious look at that relative to the 1 million versus more, or less, whatever the committee decided and whatever the executive committee decided as well. So it's important we look at that in light of this new move to the new grant. What's our annual grant, by the way, per month?
That was the first
That was
question.
First question.
We
I had.
based it on like 3 months.
3 months
was part
rent
of it,
for our, yeah, 3 months rent
It's
and
part of one of the
other,
issues.
yeah, and other costs that may be in terms of, you know,
And
escape clauses.
what
if
you
you
talked
will.
about, well, there's a listing of
Okay.
the accrued salaries. Does that mean like they get to take off or something, a vacation?
Okay,
They're paid but not working. Something like that. You have to have that on hand.
mhm,
In case somebody gets sick even, you know,
yeah,
but,
Accrued PTO liabilities.
yeah.
So
that's what I mean. It was, that's what I remember. It was based on 3 months rent and some
mhm.
it was,
payment of
and that,
salary stuff, because that's the biggest.
That was the
expense,
basis for.
yeah,
and things like that. I'm
Mhm,
just trying to remember.
okay,
and then there was some buffer,
mhm,
which is where the number came up, but
Yeah.
all of those liabilities have been calculated and brought in.
I remember it was 995,000.
Okay.
So we said, okay, just
around to $1 million, yeah, it's $1 million.
And,
Mhm,
you know, try to keep it at $1 million, but it's very liquid. That was the whole point, to have it being liquid.
Okay,
So,
so pretty much cash is what you want.
well, that's why I was asking. for
Inferring,
cash,
okay.
just- Or somehow just whatever you can do that's very liquid.
Okay, all right, Dan, so that's a segue into you and where we are. and
Just
Mark,
as you
what-
said, it's
what you-
useful in emergency money, and when we moved here, we didn't have to.
You didn't have to have it.
Things
Okay.
like that.
All right,
But then you pay for that. Once you use it.
right,
So,
okay,
I don't know, any other thoughts?
yeah, Dan, I guess, what,
And
and
that's
then,
on top of
Mark.
what we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are looking
I
at,
hope it's that it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
What we're
what
comfortable
is, assumptions and things like that, yeah.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
I've done some, review of some of the professional literature, you know, GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association.
Mhm.
Martha contacted some of
Mhm.
her peers to what their organizations are doing, but we're gathering the information to see. Especially for an entity like this, you know, we're not a full government, and so our needs are different. It might mean that we need more because we're so dependent upon, you know, grant funding,
Mhm.
and we're so dependent on fronting our expenses and then getting reimbursed from behind.
Mhm.
So there are a number of factors to actually incorporate, and, you know, like you said, you guys, when you said that $1 million, you actually sat down and actually calculated some things out. So that's part of the plan that I'm thinking about is to actually do some of that analysis. Some sources are saying, you know, 2 months operating expenses, some say 3,
Mhm.
some say 6 when you're in, you know, a riskier environment. You know, what happens if someone just, you know, defunds a contract?
Mhm.
You know, those are risks that we need to analyze and see what's
Mhm.
there. So part of the idea was to kind of set forth the ideas of the elements that we need to actually analyze. And those are the significant ones in my mind. And come back to this entity and probably starting in the October meeting. We have an audit
Okay.
and
Mhm.
those types of things.
Mhm.
I've already done a balance sheet analysis, kind of showing what is our current,
Mhm.
you know, view of fund balance, how much of it is actually cash and liquid, how much of it is actually receivable, so I'm sure that we're. And so, you know, we'll have to go back and forth and see what are our risks and what are our opportunities. You know, it may not be feasible for us to have a, yeah, 6 months worth of cash
Mhm.
to cover expenses, but if we have a liquid enough cycle, you know, we'll just have to quantify what those decision points are. The risk assessment is from this organization and the recommendation.
Well, one of the things that, well, we used as, I'll say baseline, and I know I've said this before,
Mhm.
was what if we are told to close down for whatever reason? And what would it take to pay you to get out of your lease kind of thing? And then that was one thing, it was part of the equation. And it was also, I remember, one of the things I remember when you said upfront matching money, I don't know if this is the column we use for that, but that was one of the things we discussed, and we actually looked over a bunch of the grants we had received, and I remember there were $20,000 here and $50,000 there, and we just sort of use that generally, but I don't know if this is the line that you use, you know, this fund balance is really more of a, I won't call it emergency money, but it's money that you may suddenly need, so it's sort of emergency money.
More than just an operational. side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Mr. Bennett, and that's one of the things where, because we front so much of what we do, you have to have a stopping point where you say, you know, this, to your point, emergency, I mean, but it's not a daily operating expense that we're using to front on some of our stuff and we bill out. So I do think there has to be some conversation around what's the nexus on that fund balance to what we would actually use it for instead of holding it over here. And then carrying too much in a fund balance means that, you know, our money could be used or possibly leveraged in other places. But yeah, I think those discussions are good, but you've got to balance those too.
Right now, it's earning a lot.
Right, so right
Pretty
now,
good,
not
yeah.
necessarily the issue, correct.
Yeah. But the other thing it had to do with personnel, you know, it was sort of based on rent and salaries, a lot of it. You know, if something happens.
Essentially, there are like three general uses for fund balance. One is to leverage your operations. So that comes into the front end, matching the grants, that type of thing. The rainy day fund idea. And the risk management idea, you know, what do you need if something catastrophic happens?
Yeah.
Or something very unexpected happens, you know, a revenue source all of a sudden drops off. You know, something happens to TPO funding, you know, that's such a significant part here.
Right.
You know, what is our reaction to that? Do we lay off everybody?
Well, that's, we prefer
do-
not to, so that's what I mean about.
Those are the
salaries.
value judgments, those are the
But
risks.
you'd have to balance that with, if that was to happen. Are those folks now, are they still resources? They are in so much as they should be, right? We didn't get you deployed. I mean, and you would, that's a discussion we know now would have to take place.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's that continuity.
So that means that there's different dynamics when you come to fund balances.
And one of the things that I personally prefer to make sure that I say is there's also that investment aspect. So we use unbalanced investments, new facility, which is to help us leverage, you know, the growth and expansion, which affects fund balance. It's how we were able to diversify the organization from being so dependent on TPO to actually including, you know, larger share of, you know, running the resiliency, emergency management environment, invest in community engagement, invest in data research and analysis, all of which are part of that diversification strategy that's been in place for, you know, 2 periods now, and is really coming into that, you know, blossoming into reality, you know, these last 2 fiscal years, where that actually is part of our risk mitigation. We're not just a TPO flow through, we have a program. And, you know, so that's part of what helps us. So making sure that we actually analyze those 3 elements, you know, what do we need to actually carry on operations, just in a regular environment? What is our risk horizon?
Yeah.
But then also, what do we need to invest in the next step, next phase of this organization?
That's a great point.
Operations can go up and down, obviously, depending on that. But we have fixed expenses too that are not going to go up and down. Then we need to, I believe we got a 10-year lease right now. Are there any buyout terms in that lease?
We have a clause for non-appropriation of funds, so we do have sort of an out if the catastrophic event that we're talking about were to happen.
So I mean, obviously, there's no, you're not paying to have a fund balance that covers 10 years of a lease. But that's,
3 months.
Yeah, reasonable. I agree.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I have a committee. I have
No problem. All right, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Another thing I was gonna mention is how subject are we to state and federal appropriations? The state has what billions of dollars now, but if the state were to be tight, would we be hit hard by the state? Should this, or federal government, should they say, hey, we're not paying anything, we're doing a shutdown?
John.
Yeah,
it's
so,
all left.
we need to have that in the back of our
Well,
mind.
that's kind of what I was asking about the $1 million.
Yeah, because we're subject to state appropriations, federal appropriations.
I lived through
Yeah,
a budget shutdown
You
at the
did?
federal level
you did,
where they just stopped paying.
and
So,
see,
so do, you know,
Right.
people depending on it,
right,
do you stop operating?
yeah,
We couldn't, unfortunately, it wasn't terribly long,
yeah,
but that was just one of the risk elements.
That's-
we had to deal with.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're trying to convey is that when we come back for this discussion in October,
Or later, yeah.
you're gonna be putting forward some facets of a fund balance policy, dimensions of the fund balance policy that need to be considered,
yeah,
so that we're a little bit more comprehensive in the reason we have it, what the intentions are, the mix, I mean, all the things that the committee's been talking about today, but I think also the evaluation of what our likeliest
And
risks
quantify
are.
it according
Yeah,
to.
quantify.
our
So you're
particular
gonna be
scenario.
coming with kind of a comprehensive set of
Mhm.
components of the future fund balance policy that this committee can dig into and take a look at.
And so, hearing the concerns expressed today, well, we do that.
good.
But
And-
I
go ahead,
just want to mention, don't think that it can't happen.
Mhm.
I mean, and I know I always bring this up, but I've really appreciated the airport commission.
Yeah,
They do 3 budgets. One is if everything's great, the
That's
next one
right.
if it's
Yeah.
just bad, hard times, and the third one was, they used to refer to it as the 9/11.
9/11 catastrophe that we
Catastrophe
experienced with
That
the
they
airport.
were, they
no
didn't have
flights.
anybody there for like a couple of weeks or within a week.
Right,
But then you had COVID.
That's correct.
Nobody was there for
which
months.
also.
So it was even worse.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the whole plan was the fund balance, took
Yeah,
care of it. I
yeah.
mean, that, we had planned so much because of a real stress.
I
Yeah,
think our intention is to think through what those
Yeah.
potential risks are for us.
we did.
You know,
And-
like,
and-
what are those,
Yeah.
what are those things that could happen that could severely inhibit our ability to function
Exactly,
based on how we rely on revenue? And
yeah,
so that's what I think
Yeah.
we're planning, we're proposing that we come back.
yeah, with the assumptions, outline, detail the assumptions that we're taking to and what the rationale is for this, and future discussions of future committees as well, so they have that background.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for those assumptions there. Other points about the fund balance policy, when do we expect, by the way, to have a chance to review? What are your expectations at this point? We discussed it last
I
meeting.
think we'll
but
have
what-
something in writing for you at the October.
October 31st,
meeting.
okay, whatever that
Knowing
date
that
is.
the audit is kind of the primary focus for
Yeah.
that meeting, so we want to be able to give you
Okay.
information to consume and review, and then it'll be ideally moving forward for recommendation and action after your October meeting.
Okay, the October meeting, all right, very good. That sounds good. We trying down this year.
The earnings that you're getting, the 5.319, is this set up in a money market account or what kind of account?
It's the local government investment pool.
Okay, local.
There's a lot of
Just
local government issues.
Okay,
Yeah.
That is the area where we are
Yeah.
earning it. So we haven't, I think the other thing that Dan is thinking about is, to your liquidity question,
yeah.
Mhm.
what other options are available to us as a public entity, and what is his recommendation for, because if we purchase CDs or that kind of a thing,
Yeah.
of course, we don't have the liquidity then, and so.
Yeah, but the
how do you
90-day
balance it?
CDs are paying huge.
Well, that's the thing, so I think,
Yeah.
how do we navigate that? And I would say, I know, Chairman Davis just left, but he did appoint, as you all know, in July, that committee for services and contracts, and I would say anything that we would want to do, my opinion would be anything we'd want to do around a line of credit or other types of more innovative banking products, I think we'd want to do as part of a comprehensive RFP for banking, and not try to pull those levers in isolation.
But we also, I feel sure you did that. We also had an overnight thing where you put the money overnight.
We have a sweep policy, yeah.
Is that something that's through the local government investment pool or?
So-
what, just-
So you want to explain what we currently have as far as the minimum cash account?
Yeah, what's the minimum cash impress balance that we have set? What is that, by the way?
But you get,
It's 20,000.
but you get interest overnight. You
Yeah.
Just put big money overnight.
I should point some CDs are paying good money right now.
Yeah.
But, and the reality is, there's not a reason not to use that, because the penalty you take by taking it out early is only a penalty on the interest. It doesn't affect the principal. So, You know, if you don't take it out, you
But
get
90
full.
days.
You gonna say?
But-
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, in terms, that's why cash flow is so important in terms of
I think that
managing
that's
that.
why Dan's been doing the work to
Good,
look at what our
good.
ebbs and flows on a monthly and quarterly basis are to see what
Okay.
will we actually have to think about those different vehicles.
And if you look at the bottom of the report for June 30, 2022, column, the right column,
Yeah. Mhm.
the average monthly yield was 1.148.
Right, okay.
You know, so that
Mhm.
planning horizon for your cash investment has changed significantly.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
we're also looking at those issues and making sure that our sweeps are.
Didn't want to sign this conversation.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hearing. But anyway, hey, what about showing the interest? I know the cash is probably included, the interest is included in cash. Is it possible to delineate the interest income so that we can
It's
see
actually
that
on the income statement.
on the income statement? That's right. You got it there. Okay, I was thinking in terms of maybe a line item, but that may be more work than needed. I don't want to do that too much work, but anyway.
I make Karen smile.
You see it, funny to do.
Just detail. So at least have an idea of what we're doing. And, I think that's good to do. I know at the airport, Pat mentioned, we have like 600 to 900 days of cash on hand. So
Oh, yeah, it's like more than a couple of years.
Yeah, more than, yeah, of cash on hand at the
That they
airport.
run the
We-
airport.
We look at that, because we still have a line of credit, they stopped it years ago and whatever, didn't
I
need it,
remember
remember
that
that, we
too.
stopped it,
Yeah.
yeah, got rid of some things, but
Because
anyway,
we never used it.
we didn't use it, we didn't need to, because we had ample cash.
Yeah, and your credit rating went up.
Yeah, so,
Anyway,
anyway, that's great point. Other comments or questions on the
Yeah.
review of the fund balance, any other recommendations, suggestions, or comments? This will be very important, foundational. I like the discussion we've had on this as we set for the future and document it and move forward. That'll be great, Dan. So thank you for your additional analysis and work, and thank you, Karen, in advance. Well, we know y'all will bring back a review. And of course, Diane, thank you too. And this month, thank you. So thank you all for that. Any other comments? Are there any, go ahead, sir.
Did you mention, because you mentioned earlier, this it will be helpful for future committees.
Yeah.
Did you
yeah.
mention to Andres that he was nominated to be chairman as of next month?
Yeah, right.
Before he got here.
I got to tell him that, but yeah, glad to have him. In fact, he's sitting so close, I can feel the glove. Which is wonderful, which is wonderful. Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that, yeah, it'll be great. Well, I appreciate that, thank you, appreciate that, it's fun, this is a fun group, I gotta tell you, I enjoy y'all. I'm already missing y'all, already missing, well, so anyway, but, so, anyway, that's a great point. Are there any other business that needs to come before the committee, any other comments for the good of the order that you'd like to share?
I will just share just
Please.
kind of from a timeline perspective.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's October 31 is the next meeting.
Yeah.
Is that right? And so the purpose of that meeting will be to review the audited financial statements and the
Okay.
draft report.
Okay.
The commission is scheduled to meet on Thursday, November 2nd,
Mhm.
which is a meeting date change.
Yeah,
So the TPO meets first thing at executive 8:30, 9:30, and then the commission meeting will follow. And the purpose of that meeting is to review the recommendations from finance committee with regard to the audit
Mhm.
to assure that we are submitting on time, pursuant to the auditor of public
Mhm.
accounts. So just kind of wanted to lay that timeline out.
Mhm.
So I would suspect that the auditor
So
will
we're
be in
not-
contact with
You're
you.
not meeting on the ninth?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So it'll just
November's a
be-
consolidated meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, back to back, I should say. They're separately adjourned, separately called and adjourned meetings, but yeah.
What was the reason for the changing? The numbers?
Mostly just from a scheduling perspective. We had some requests that we compress November's meetings because of the busy season that we're in, but also there's a conflict with membership on the commission for the night.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Okay, good. So
that was part of the schedule that was approved.
one question, how far in advance can we get the information for that meeting?
on the
31st?
October 31st.
Yeah, how far in advance can we get that information from you in terms of review? So when we get here, we've already had a chance to look it over. You want to tell my name, but a little later on, just to let you know, say that you, let you know. Yeah, so we'll have a review. It's always good to
The
have
goal
it
would be to get it to you the week prior to the
week
meeting.
prior to.
So the 31st Tuesday,
Okay.
so we'd be shooting to get it to you, but it's largely gonna depend on
Mhm.
the end of process crunch that
Okay,
is inevitable.
okay, all right, great, all right, good deal. Any other items to come before the committee before we adjourn? Do I need a motion to adjourn? I can't. remember.
No.
I don't.
Just your.
Just- Out of here.